Good morning and welcome to Moments with Melinda. I am your host, Melinda Moulton, and today I am with one of my most beloved people on the planet, John Killacky. John, how are you?
Oh, I'm so happy to be here with you. And, you're like my spirit guide in the world. So it just gives me joy to sit with you, even on Zoom.
Well, I feel the same way. I think we're siblings with different parents. I mean, I really feel like you're a brother to me. So thank you for that friendship and thank you for being on my show because you've got so much going on right now. And
Yes.
so let for all my viewers who maybe don't know you, and there's probably very few, let me tell you who John Killacky is. John Killacky is an American politician. He's a writer, author, former arts administrator, filmmaker, and visual artist. He was elected to the Vermont House of Representatives in 2019 and served 2 terms. Before his retirement in 2018, John was the head of the Flynn Center for the Performing Arts in Burlington, Vermont. He was also an arts program officer with the San Francisco Foundation. And then there's more and more and more and more, but that would take up our whole interview. So rather than that, I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about yourself. And I know how much you don't like to do that, John, but we're going to try to pull this out of you because everybody who watches my show wants to know more about you. So, how are you doing this new year? How are you hanging in there?
Well, I'm really lucky, Melinda, because I've been a student of Buddhism since the 70s. And, part of what I hold on to there is that the past is past, and I've had a great run in different things, and I'm very grateful and blessed for all of that. But the future doesn't exist. We only have now, and I'm so and I model myself with you in this because I see you doing the same thing. I really am so fully engaged with today, with the now, and I'm so filled with joy even in these uncertain, hideous, grotesque, erasing times that we live in. I just feel that I'm there to do something for myself, for my community, to hold each other sacred, hold each other closely, and that's what I can do. So it's the now.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
that. So can we start at the beginning? And by the way, I want to tell my viewers that I think this is the third time that I'm interviewing John Killacky over the last 25 years. And I don't think I've ever interviewed anybody 3 times. So this is how much I love this guy. Because talking to him is always such a treat. So, but let's start at the beginning, John. Can you share a little bit about your life growing up?
Sure. Irish Catholic, south side of Chicago. My father and my grandfathers worked in the Chicago stockyards. That's what the Irish did when they came to America. They worked in, if they were in Chicago, they worked in the yards. So I grew up a working class, uh, 5 kids. I was the middle child, 2 older sisters, 2 younger brothers. Uh, I think when I was, I don't know, eight or 9 or 10, the school trip went to Alvin Ailey Dance Company, and that night I came home to dinner and said, I know what I want to do in the world. And my parents looked at me and said, Oh, great, what's that? I said, I want to be a dancer. And that was outside the purview of getting up at 4 in the morning for my dad to sell cattle. Um, so it was a complex time for a little Irish Catholic boy in this family to kind of grow into himself. Realized he was gay, did study dance, and to my parents' credit, they didn't know what it was, but my mom took out the yellow pages and drove me downtown. So
Bless her heart.
yeah,
Did your father come around to embracing who you were?
uh, in many different ways, I separated myself when I moved to New York for a while, and I I danced until I was about 30, and then I realized, I'm not going to be able to be a multi-star dancer. I was going to be a group dancer, in modern and ballet. So I went into administration. In the mid 80s, I was at Pew Foundation in Philadelphia, and I was running their arts program. And the budget was $23 million a year. But I really hadn't shared too much with my family about what I was doing. But my father came to visit me. And I remember we're sitting in my office. He said, Whose office are we in? I said, what do you mean, Dad? He said, this is a fancy office. Whose is this? I said, no, it's mine. He said, what do you do? I don't really understand what you do. So, there was a reaching out. Um,
Was he
and
impressed? Was he proud of you, seeing you in that incredible position, managing $23 million
uh,
and running the Pew Foundation? I mean, did he I mean, your father's probably not alive anymore. Do you feel like at the end of the day that your father was proud of you? Because I know all of us are proud of you.
well, thank you. Thank you. And I am very loved. So I appreciate
You are
that.
loved. So
Yeah.
I'm just telling you that I think your father probably was very proud of you, and he just was
Well,
too.
well, in the end, there was before that, I went to his house because my sister said, I think Dad's dying, and you can decide to either deal with it in person or deal with it at the funeral. So I did go to his house. This was before the Pew trip, and he said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm told you're sick and you may be dying, so I thought it's time for us to kind of be with each other." So we watched television for a weekend. The television was always on, and we had conversations somewhat about. But but then after the Pew trip, he came to visit me when I then moved to Minneapolis, and the one powerful thing he said to me, we were sitting on the porch, and he said, "You know, I'm so sorry that so many of your friends are dying." He said, "Men my age, it's fine. We're gonna die." He said, "But it's just unfair that your friends." I mean, he couldn't really say the word homosexual, but and I thought that was very generous of him to kind of to reach out and empathize with the losses because but it was now late 80s, early 90s, and it was a carnage. Every gay man I knew in New York was dead.
And we're going
So,
to talk about that. So I want to go back to when you were a dancer. I mean, you were a dancer for what, 20 years? And
about 10 years, 10
10
years.
years.
Yeah, yeah.
And you've posted photos about of you dancing, and they're
Yeah.
beautiful. Um, and but then you went off to you went off to San Francisco, and this was during the AIDS epidemic, and you had many, many friends, and you created films and photography that you created during the AIDS epidemic. Talk to us a little bit about that time and what it meant to you and what you were going through and the fear that you might have had in your heart, and certainly the grief and despair that you had during that time.
Well, it was in the late 80s. I went from Philadelphia. I was in Minneapolis at the Walker Art Center. And at that point, so many of my friends from New York were dying. And there was a kind of a street activism that happened with folks in ACT UP, where a lot of artists got together and just did protests and demonstrations. And uh, as a way to grieve, as a way to mourn, as a way to eulogize, as a way to remember, as a way to rage, as a way to cry. And so I did the same thing. I picked up a camera with some friends and I made a number of AIDS pieces, three of them. We didn't know what we were doing, but we just did them together. And I would write narratives first, and then we'd shoot the pieces. And one time I had been giving a lecture in Poland and about dance stuff. And they, I had the afternoon off, and someone said, "Oh, well, Auschwitz is 30 minutes away." And I said, "Oh, well, do you think a taxi would take me there?" And I said, "Well, someone would. They arranged for someone to take me there." And I had never visited one of the camps before, and it was, well, everyone knows it. It's life altering when you do this, but I remember I was in after visiting the buildings, I was in a field and a docent was taking me around and the field was just this green field. Um, but there was a billboard, a small one, to it had a river in the picture. And I said, I don't understand what like where did the water go? And the docent was rather incredulous and said, "Well, sir, the river was filled with ashes." and you're standing on these the ashes of these bodies. And I fell over. I mean, I just and so I had this image of this field of bodies. And so I came back and I said to 13 of my friends, I said, I have this image and I gave them the voiceover, and I said, I have this image of just our bodies on top of each other, strewn away. And not to say it's the same as the Holocaust, but this is our pandemic. And um, would you be willing to lay naked with me, in a field of bodies? And it was a very profound moment that um, we came together to kind of hold each other, to hold our community. And we shot it was called Stolen Shadows. It's, you know, it, all over the world. It's Guggenheim Museum. It's shown a lot. But it's that ethos of working in community that is the same ethos that I called you almost a year ago and said, I want to make this film about bodies. And you were the first person I called, and I said, I want you to be in this film. And because I was so terrified, once again, like I was in AIDS, I was so terrified when Trump got elected for the people I care about. I'm queer, I'm paraplegic, I'm old. I think of our trans friends that are like being eliminated. And I wanted to find a way in art, once again, to gather a community, to hold this kind of sacred space together, and to have everybody participate in the way they felt comfortable. So, I mentioned the Soul and Shadows piece because that was like 95 or 96, so it's years ago, but it's that same body politic that in these times we're in right now, I just wanted to work again in community and find a way to be held and to
As
hold
you
each other.
did. As you did. Now, you did author a book, Queer Crips, Disabled Gay Men and Their Stories. Talk to us about this book and about your own disability as a paraplegic, John.
Sure. Let's see, in 96, I was still at the Walker Art Center, and Larry, my husband, who was reading beside me in bed, and suddenly he thought I had like a seizure or something. So we went to the doctor and we did a scan, and they found that there was a tumor inside my spinal cord. But because it was inside the cord, you couldn't do a biopsy. And they said, well, it's blocking 60% of the cord. So eventually it's going to block the cord, whether it's just a fatty tumor or not. Um, so I was scheduled for surgery. Um, and the surgeon had said, well, you'll be in the hospital 2 or 3 days with the sore neck for a month. And so when I had stopped dancing, I was a marathon runner, so I was still running uh, pretty heavily. So the night before surgery, I ran 5 miles just to, get my nerves out of the way. And 12 hours after the surgery started, I was completely paralyzed from the neck down.
Jesus.
I was quadriplegic, and so I was sent out of intensive care, of course, for 10 days, and then in a rehab hospital for 6 weeks. And so, a number of things. First, as soon as I was into the rehab hospital, I was rolled into the therapist's office. Then they said, "Well, while you're here, you can uh, visit a psychologist each week." Which I thought, well, that's pretty helpful. This is pretty unexpected and dramatic. Um, so I rolled in and picked up out of the bed and put in the chair and rolled into the therapist's office. And she says, "What's on your mind today?" And I said, well, to be honest, could you talk to me about the return of sexual function? And she said, well, I really can't because I'm not gay. I said, what? Well, I didn't ask you about you. You asked me about me. And we're in a rehab hospital. What are you talking about? And she said, well, I'm sorry, I'm not gay. I said, what are you talking? There aren't that many ways to have sex. I'm talking about quadriplegic. What does it mean to have sex? And I said, we're done. She said, well, anger's good. I said, oh no, we are done. So that fueled me to realize that the ignorance, and I hope it was just ignorance and not homophobia, was so extreme because there weren't voices. So eventually I did find a community of other disabled gay men. And I was living in San Francisco at that point. And in 2004, all the gay presses turned it down because they said it's not buff boys and lipstick nights. Who's going to be interested in this? But then the disability presses, they wanted all this inspiration porn. And look at all these happy, well-adjusted, and these are stories by men who imagine trying in a wheelchair, trying to go to a gay bar and pick somebody up.
Well, absolutely. So
Yeah,
this is the queer. So for my viewers, it's queer Crips, disabled gay men, and their stories, and then this can be found at local bookstores. It's still available, correct?
yeah, yeah. And it won a Lambda Literary Award. So that was great. And I sent a copy to that therapist
Oh, good for you.
with
That
a note saying, put this on your bookshelf, and next time someone comes in, give this to their family.
well, how about just read it, girlfriend? So
Yes.
now, now in 2021, you released your book Because Art, Commentary, Critique, and Conversation, and it has received, as your other book, critical acclaim. So share with my viewers what inspired you to write Because Art and what it is about. And I know that's available at all of our local bookstores. It's still out there.
Still out there.
It's
It's beautiful.
inspiring
Yeah.
so many people. So talk about that. Talk about this other book that you just finished
Well,
in 2021.
well, thank you. I think it was my COVID time where I was just grappling with who am I in this world right now and what kind of actions can I take? And I have been very lucky that I've been able to be published throughout my career and that I've been invited to do commentaries. As you, Melinda, you're, I think, an esteemed writer. Um, and I used a lot of that as a bully pulpit to talk about queer issues, to talk about underknown artists that were fringe artists who had major impact, but they were 30 years dead and people had forgotten about them or history didn't write about them because they were too odd. Um, and I realized I had this body of work of talking from the inside about the AIDS pandemic, talking about leadership issues in philanthropy, talking about systemic racism issues, talking from my perspective as a legislator, as an arts administrator. And then the center of the book is really these wonderful pieces I was given an opportunity to write about artists who many didn't know who they were. And it was a way of having them exist, because if they're not written about, no one's going to know about them. And then the third part is I've been really lucky. I've been able to have public conversations with Tony Kushner, who wrote Angels in America, Meredith Monk, Janice Ian. And so I published some of those transcripts because these people are so relevant. What they were saying is for artists, they're inspiring us. For political artists, they inspired us. And I just thought, okay. And and then I was like, well, what am I going to call this? And someone said, oh, I don't know. It's just Because Art, John. Why not? I said, well, bingo, that's what it is. Uh, and it's 58 of my previously published writings.
And it's a fabulous book. So to my
Oh,
viewers,
thank you.
please go to your bookstore, your local bookstore. It's Because Art by John Killacky. It's so well worth the read. So John, what is Flux Fest?
Well, I got very interested in the Fluxus art movement, and I wanted to make a film about Fluxus because these were these artists in the 60s who sort of changed everything. They were before pop art and they were before minimalism, but they were the artists who decided, and Yoko Ono was a Fluxus artist. So, people think of her with John, but this is pre-John Lennon, and he came to a Fluxus show of hers and blew his mind. Um, that their ideas are as important as the object, and even more important. And the objects are just sort of the remnant or the residue of the action, but it was the action that was important. And so they really very much influenced Andy Warhol, They very much influenced Bob Rauschenberg, who started taking, and Jasper Johns taking common things and putting them in paintings and stuff. But because they didn't make objects, the museum world didn't really have them anymore. They didn't collect them because you can't really collect the stuff. And so I just thought these people are so amazing because there's these transformative moments. And they would say, like, well, anyone can do it. You can do it. Here's a score of what I did. And it was so what I did was I researched a number of the artists, and in the Fluxus video that I made, I recreated in my own way these actions of Yoko Ono. So at one point, Yoko Ono had a score that said, light a match.
Cool.
So it was like, okay, well, how do I light a match in a performative way? And so it was really a lot of fun. And then what I did was I proposed to Champlain College. I'd been teaching there, and they had done a retrospective of my earlier the AIDS and disability video work. I said, why don't we involve all the students and do a Fluxus Fest? And I'll go to classes, we'll talk about the Fluxus art movement, and then the kids can make whatever they want, and all of it's allowed. So we did this, and Melinda, over 100 students made work. The opening was complete chaos. It was fantastic. I was so happy. Um, but I also invited other artists in Vermont to be part of this. And here's a very, very cool thing. There's a Fluxus related show in England that's opening in February in Leicester. And my Fluxus piece is in the show. But also, seven other artists from my Fluxfest show, they're in the England show. So like Vermont's going over to England, which is,
I love it. I read
yeah,
about that. And actually, that was one of my questions. Now, John, you created in 2023 a visual poem, Rumination, on living with chronic pain. It can be viewed on your website,
yeah,
johnkillacky.com. To my viewers, visit
yes.
John's website. It's fascinating. Talk to us about living with chronic pain and how you manage to keep your bright spirits.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm laughing because it's like, depending on the day, as you know, we're close friends, so you've seen me in all aspects of this.
But I would
Uh,
venture that a lot of my viewers, I mean, I'm dealing with a tabloid cyst right now at the bottom of my spine. I mean, there are people, and certainly at our age, who are living with pain, probably not as intense as maybe you're feeling, but this is valuable because you have such a je ne sais quoi about you, and you don't elude that
well,
vibe.
I before I did the Still Point is the name of the piece. Before I did that, I had been 16 weeks in a program, the chronic pain program at the medical center, because I was really trying to grapple with the enormity of this constant pain and what to do with it. And if we take too many drugs, then we just get dulled from it.
Right,
But I didn't also want to be defined by my pain.
right.
I had to. So my initial impulse is, well, if I go to this program, the pain will stop. But that's a false construct. The it's no longer in the body, it's in the brain, this pain, that in chronic pain. And so to break the neural pathway, very complicated. But we did a lot of different modalities. We did Reiki, we did craniosacral massage, we did acupuncture, we did yoga. We had a meeting once a week as a group. So it was a very thorough time. And in the middle of it, I realized that what I had to do is learn how to cope, but also to, when it's really bad, like in my right leg, just imagine sending energy to my left leg,
Wow.
and just kind of being there. And at one point, um, I was getting a craniosacral massage and my whole body, because I mostly have, I don't have a lot of energy in my left side of my body from the surgery still, but in the right side is where all the pain is because it's like gripping everything all the time. Um, so during this massage thing, suddenly my
Wow.
whole body, and I said, "What just happened?" And she said, "Well, it's called still point,
Well, I'm
where
getting,
the
yeah. I want to get into that. Your still point piece. Is that what that is?
Yes, yes. And so what it was
Oh,
like I wanted to reach towards this moment, and it's a liminal moment where you just things can go into equilibrium and to kind of reach for it, you kind of grasp for it, but you can't really hold it. You have to just be in it for a moment. So what I did was I wrote this piece. It's short. It's a 3 minute video, and I got it's called Still Point. It's very it's I loved working on it. But then the Fabric Workshop Museum in Philadelphia invites artists from other disciplines to come and be in residence to expand their work into other disciplines. So they saw this video, DJ Hellerman, the curator, and he said, "How about you come and be in residence with us?"
wow.
And so for 2 months, I met with them on Zoom, and then I spent 5 days in their workshop. With they have all these great people who were just there to work with you on this thing. And so we took the ideas in the video, and I wanted to make a death mask of my face. So we took the image from the video and we printed it on um, the screen, and then we dyed the screen because I wanted to be like 100 years old, right? And then it still wasn't degraded enough, so we took latex and put latex on the back of it to make it all wrinkly, and then I said, okay, now let's. Is there a blowtorch here? Let's blowtorch the thing. So we burned the thing. We didn't let the museum know we were going to use a blowtorch in the hallway, but we did.
And
Um,
and it's at BCA right now. People can go see it.
that part of Still Point is, and then the floor piece is a burlap piece that has 4 lines from the Still Point in it.
And
About
it's going to West Virginia too, as part of their soft cover
yes.
on January
So
31st.
what
Right.
happened was
Big deal.
BCA invited this piece to be in their grief show, and I said, well, first of all, I'm honored, of course, but I said, I just made this new video, and could we put the new video with the death mask and the floor thing, and would you mind? And then Burlington has its own thing. So we did that. That's in Burlington through July 24th. They overnight expressed the floor piece and the shroud to West Virginia, and that's up with the original Still Point through the end of June. So it's,
And
I,
your
yes,
Flux Flow videos will be at a storefront installation this month, for the month of February in Decatur, Georgia, and the Flux video in residue. What remains is heading to De Montfort University Museum, like you said, in Leicester, England, and that's
yeah.
opening on February 5th. I mean, your work is getting around, and I just want my viewers to understand what's behind your work, because I think a lot of people have seen your work, but to understand behind it. But now I want to move into and spend a little bit of time talking about your most recent creative project, Corpus, which can be seen on Church Street at BCA Gallery through the end of January, at which point it is heading to the AVA Gallery and Art Center in Lebanon, New Hampshire. So, talk to us about this creation and describe it to my viewers in your own words.
Well, I mentioned earlier in our conversation about how I worked during AIDS and inviting people into the conversation, into an aesthetic conversation, a community. And so what I did was, and this is very profound to me because we are taught, I don't know when you're going to air this, but we are talking 1 year to the date that we filmed this.
1 year
That
of the
I,
date to what today is January 6th. Is
today we filmed,
that you and I filmed it, that you and I
yes,
put together? Well,
yes.
well,
You were
yeah,
the,
this is going to go out in the next couple of weeks. This will go up.
okay.
So, wow, that's so
So
interesting because that was an interesting day.
Well, what I did was I knew you were the first person I called, and I said, Melinda, I want to make this work. It's a group work about claiming our bodies because I'm very frightened and I'm worried about my community, and I would love you to be part of it. And I did that with 16 friends, but you were the first I called, and you said yes, of course. Um, I 16 people. And as I did with you, I asked, I said, you can do any body parts you want. And then often people said, well, what do you have in mind? And I would say something to someone and they'd say, no, I don't want to do that. Like a trans friend of mine who had top surgery, I said, well, what if, would you be willing to share your chest with us? And he goes, oh, John, I'm so over my chest. I'm having trouble with my stomach. It's like, so, okay, so your stomach. So everyone got to choose their body part. And then we shot Art Bell, who I love, the filmmaker in town. And we shot very close up in color, and it was on this track. And we did a 60-second scan of whatever the body part that person wanted. So there's no faces, there's no full bodies. It's just up close and personal. And one of our colleagues in the thing had had 80 surgeries on her leg.
Mm.
And she said, I've had such difficulty with my leg. I would really like to reclaim my leg. Would that be all right? And I said, yes. And so I didn't know while we were shooting even what this would come to be. And then when I shot it, I thought, no, okay, now how am I going to edit this? Like, what is this? What collage is this? And I just listened to the bodies that were offered in this piece. And we just started um, sort of from the top going down scans of the body. And for instance, I have a scar on my neck from my surgery 30 years ago. And that's, while it's not that visible to most people, it's still a trauma that I carry with me every day as I sort of walk assisted with a cane or so I chose that, and it was next to a younger man who had really long hair. So it was like his cascading hair against my scar. And then I just went, another colleague that's in it had been in a body cast for a year as a child. And he said, I'd like to use my spine. And so other people had hip surgeries. It was like everyone chose their body part. And then what it became for me is I was making it as a affirmation piece that we were claiming our bodies and that we were holding each other sacred in all of this. It's invited into this show about grief, loss, and mourning, uh, which is a very beautiful show. But people are seeing it now through a grief lens.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, well, that's really interesting because it is an abstract piece. It's a collage of body parts. Um, and I've now been in the gallery a number of times, and it's very profound to have people look at these bodies and then immediately wanting to talk to me about their body,
Hmm.
the body parts that one woman who had had a stroke had used. She said, "Oh, I wish my left arm could have been in your film. Maybe it would feel better."
Oh, wow. Would you like me to share my experience
Yes.
of being in your film? Well, you called me and invited me to be in this piece, and you explained it all to me, and um, you asked me what part of my body I would want to reclaim, and I said my breasts. And you said, "Oh, I was thinking about your ankle." And I was like, "Well, I don't really want to claim my ankle." But as a woman, I just feel like sometimes our breasts are abused and used and misused and misjudged. And I just felt that that was a part of my body as a woman that I wanted to put out and reclaim as my own and as something that was precious to me and not always so precious to everyone else. And so that's what I did is I exposed my bare breasts and you filmed me and it was a beautiful experience. And I am so proud to be in this piece and that you invited me to be in it.
Well, it was a, a deep gift to me that you were in it, and um, it is extraordinary. Your
It
your
is a beautiful
presence and
piece.
it's yeah.
And it's and now and with the grief, loss, and mourning, you're right. You've been doing lectures. You have one coming up, don't you, at BCA? Talk
Yes.
about that. Yes.
I'm with another artist in the show named Jordan Douglas. He's a photographer, and he did beautiful work um, archiving his mother who had passed away, and she'd been a survivor in the Holocaust. And so the images are of her family, her Jewish family in Eastern Europe, and pictures of them and the Yellow Star. And an interview in New York Times about what it was like to be a survivor of this and how people don't want to talk about it really. But it's all done in photographs of her mementos in different parts of her life. And so um, Jordan teaches at St. Michael's, and he's in the same gallery across from me. And I just think it's such an interesting thing about archiving a life and archiving a community in a way. So yeah, and the 14th let's see, I think it's 5 to 6 at the
14th
BCA
of
Gallery.
January,
Yeah,
from 5 to 6 at BCA.
yes.
Okay, and
And
you also,
we're going to talk
yes,
about our work together, and
right.
but we're also going to talk about our response to each other's work, which is really
That's
lovely.
so perfect. And you did do a panel with like Ernie Pomerleau, and because certainly he has experienced a lot of grief in his lifetime. And that was a fabulous one that I attended as well. It was extraordinary. So, to my viewers, if you want to go see John's work, it's only there till the end of the month, and then it's going to go out into the
Yes.
world. And so, if you want to see it, go to BCA. It's on Church Street. Just walk on in, go to the back of the gallery, and John's work is right there. So now I'm going to digress just a second. I want to go during the AIDS epidemic of the 90s. You did create an extraordinary piece that we mentioned earlier that exposed the loss and grief of, I believe, 90 people that you watched and helped to die. You have had so much loss and grief in your life, John, and it seems to be a center point of your work. So, talk to us about that, about how you've taken your grief and you transported it into the work that you do.
Well, you know, I never thought it was an ethos that I carried forward, but I think it is. You know,
It
uh,
is.
but you know, as a gay man growing up, living in New York when it was still illegal, I could be fired from my jobs. I'd be kicked out of my apartment. You know, I could be, the police could, you know, arrest me for it. The body became very, very essential, uh, and then the body was under assault during AIDS, and so I really had to find a way to make the body sacred again, to make it holy, to celebrate it, our sexuality, our corporal nature, you know. And then when I became paralyzed and lost sensation in my body, I had to grapple with what is this different body? What does it mean? And how do I celebrate that? How do I made a piece called Dreaming Awake, and I invited different artists with disabilities to come in, and there was a and this was a radical group of people, and they were said, well, how about if we're all naked and we improvise, but we don't use any of our apparatus? So if you use a chair, you're not in your chair. If you use a walker, you don't use that. You don't use a cane. And so we shot it over 6 weeks, and it's a 5 minute piece. But it's beautiful. But when people saw it, they said, well, no one's disabled in it. And it's like, except the one guy that has a prosthetic leg. And I said, no, everyone's disabled. The
Right.
problem is when someone in a wheelchair comes in the room, everyone only sees the wheelchair
Exactly.
or the cane or the walker. You do not see the person. I said, so you take all of that away, and our bodies aren't that much different than yours. You know, they may be withered in a different way, you know, or they may be amputated or something, but the bodies aren't that different. But I had to find a way, and again, it was this celebration of the body that was important to me, and the beauty of it, but the severe beauty of it all. And so I just have continued that. You know, I've done other kinds of pieces. I did a hour-long concert video of Janician, not PBS, and I did this Fluxus piece. We talked about conceptual pieces, but I returned to the body.
That's
Like,
it. That was
yeah,
my
right.
question. I said, my next question was, you state that you want to make the body sacred again. What do you mean by that? Wouldn't it be interesting if somebody did that with neurodiverse people so that they could be seen as not invisible with people who have neurodiversity? I mean, what a
I,
beautiful film that would be. I mean, that would, I get what you're saying. That is so beautifully said. Thank you for clarifying that about making the body sacred again. That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Um,
The next thing I'm working on right now is, Joseph Cornell, who made those beautiful little boxes in the 60s and
yes.
did different things in them. Well, I'm really losing a lot of the function in my legs. I don't have much left. So what I'm going to do is I'm learning how to cast my legs in plaster, and then I'm going to build these little Joseph Cornell boxes from these old wooden boxes from 50 years ago that used to have apples in them or fruit. And I'm going to have these little plastic parts of my leg. Now, it'll be abstract. It'll just be these plaster things on the leg, and no one will. But again, it's a way of me taking my body, inserting it into some art thing, and then let people read into it whatever they want. Because it may not, no one will know it's really my legs, but it's going to be my legs that I'm doing it with. So,
So let's just move on to the political importance of your work. I mean, your work often has this bright, bold tinge of political importance. You're a political guy. Would you agree with that?
uh, yes, yes, I think that the AIDS pieces came out of a political anger and a necessity. And, when you have nothing to lose, you just have to act.
Here, here.
Disability, the same thing. There I was like, okay, how do I grapple with the enormity of what's happened in my body, but how do I take action? And then how do I gather community around me? It's the same thing. And, you know, Corpus, the piece that you're in, which I'm so grateful for, I saw it as a political act. We made it in a response to Trump getting elected because we saw the threats that were coming down to our bodies, our autonomy, and things. And so it's an abstract piece, but I made it out of political impulse. Now, how people read any of this work, it's, I can't, it's not didactic. It's very myopic, my
Exactly.
pieces.
But John, with Corpus, you actually stated our differences reveal our humanity.
Yes.
What
In
a
the end,
statement. What a
in the
statement that is.
in the end credits, I wanted to say that because that's the what I why I reached out to everybody because I it was like that's our strength, and this group we know each other that that's our strength. We don't want to be the same,
So,
sameness it doesn't
oh,
work.
can you imagine? So let's go back to your stencil burlap piece of art displaying your face as a decaying relic. What are the four phases that are depicting this piece? Because there are four phases to that piece.
Well, it was the lines, the ending lines of the still point video is to let me see if I can get it. Dissolve expectations. So as you're facing your chronic pain, you have to you know, do that. Observe without judgment,
Yes.
surrender into ease, and learn from the body.
Oh,
And it really was my pathway through this chronic pain journey of trying to really understand and let go of some of it and let the body lead the way.
fascinating. So now you talk about how art can provide comfort, resiliency, and mental well-being. Um, I think a lot of us who are in the art world understand that, but to my viewers, where have you seen that with your own remarkable work?
Um, well, you know, Justice Corpus installation, I've had people cry with me and talk about traumatic parts of their bodies. I had another friend of ours that came in and he had lost a daughter-in-law and he came into the grief space to try to figure out how to grieve.
Mhm.
I took my bone builders class uh, to the exhibition, and mostly it's people uh, in their 70s or 80s, and most of them have lost their spouse. And they talked to me afterwards and said, it's interesting because when someone dies, it's everyone wants to grieve for a while, but my grief stays with me. Or I had an astounding experience with a colleague who came to the show, and she said that she is a death doula. And one of the things she does is in her space in Burlington, she has like an accessory unit. She has people come here who are wanting to be in respite and die. And so she has this very intimate experience with them for 2 weeks. And often they are alone. Um, and she said, and then they pass as they choose to. And she said, but then I don't know what to do with my grief.
Oh,
Like, I'm trying to give them the healing journey they choose, but it's like, I have this intense thing. So, um, I guess my work is enlivened by those kinds of conversations, and I feel it is such a gift for people to share that. And if it's, and the whole show is about grief. So I think people come into this space, they're not necessarily responding to just my work, but they're allowed in what Heather Farrell curated is to come in and just sit with our grief in our life and think about it. And what do we do with that, with our losses? And the same thing happened around disability work. The same thing happened around the AIDS work. I remember the Guggenheim Museum had something called Fever in the Archives. It was AIDS activist videos. And I was sitting there and it was like, this is amazing. There's hundreds of people here, and it's all agitprop people who are, thinking that this kind of work matters. And
it
I
does.
didn't I didn't make it in Minneapolis thinking I wanted to be at the Guggenheim. I made it to survive. The piece we're in, Corpus, we just made it together. And we had no idea what form it was going to be or where it was going to be, if it was going to be somewhere in the world. But it was like really necessary.
It's so beautiful. So again, to my viewers, please stop by the BCA Gallery on Church Street and visit this remarkable exhibit. So, I could talk with you for hours, and my shows are usually half an hour, but this one is going to be an hour because I can never say goodbye to you, and there's always so much more that I want to talk to you about. But um, I want to just talk to you real quick in the last few minutes that we have, because you are an inspiration and you are a creative change maker. Um, what do you make of the grief that we're all feeling right now, in the world that we're living in? And what are your words of wisdom for my viewers on how to embrace what we're all experiencing in what's going on in our country? Could you provide a little bit of your wisdom and vision for my viewers as we say goodbye to you, my friend?
Well, I don't have any wisdom. I try very hard to go back to my sort of meditative principles in Buddhism about calm abiding, where you just have to be in the moment, be in the now. And that's what I'm trying to do. And it is really difficult with every time we turn on the news that some new assault and some new thing has come in. And um, the way people are treated is so shameful. And so it's, a matter of, okay, well, what's my action I can take today?
Do you meditate every day?
Yes, yeah, I do.
Okay.
Um, and
So that's some good advice for people, is to take up some form of meditation, um, and to live your here, be now, and to study the Tao and how to get through this, knowing that, we've been around for many, many, many thousands and thousands of years. And as a humanity, we will get through all of this too and find the joy within us and the joy that I feel when I'm with you. It just, everything seems to go away, and be with people that you love and that you want to share your life with.
well, I think our community that it's very important to me as well, and it's about how to hold each other and to be seen with each other, and to be affirmed, and that's what I look forward to is to be
Well,
with others.
well, we're so beloved. I mean, you're so beloved, and I have known you for a long time, and I consider you one of my favorite people. And so, John, I love you, and I want to thank you so much for spending this time. It's the only time I've ever done a 1 hour show, and there's just so much that we need to talk about. But I just hope that in 2026 we can get together and actually be face to face, and that I can give you a hug and be in your energy. And bless you, and bless
Well,
Larry and your beautiful animals and your life. And thank you for all you've brought to us all here in Vermont.
all
Thank you.
right. I have one request before we leave,
What is it?
is that I love you and I really admire you. And I've called you the first time, many times in our relationship. I've called you many times. You were the first person I called seeking advice, and you are always helpful to me. In 2026, I would like to interview you on your show about your remarkable life, what you do, and how present you are. With all your accomplishments, you are one of the most fully present people I know.
Well,
So
thank
I want to turn the tables on Melinda Moulton, and it will be moments with Melinda, but it's going to be Killacky talking to Moulton. Okay?
Bless your heart. I will schedule that. I'll send you a couple of dates, and I'm sure Channel 17 would love that. So thank you. I've been doing this show for 25 years, and I've never been interviewed on my show. So thank you. We will do.
Okay.
And to my viewers, I want to wish you a happy 2026.
Yes.
Keep your spirit strong. Get out there, enjoy this weather, even though it might not be your thing. Just try to get out and get some vitamin D. And by the way, go to Burlington and enjoy Burlington. Burlington is such an extraordinary town, and everybody's kind of given it a bum rap, and I'm tired of it because this city is one of the greatest cities in the world. And so go to Burlington, eat at the restaurants, shop at the shops, and support these local businesses who have really supported us for many, many years. And on that note, Mr. Killacky, my love to you and to my love to my viewers, and we will see you when we see you again.
Bye
Goodbye.
bye.